We are so pleased to be joined once again with Chantal Bisson. Chantal is involved in so many things, but mainly we want to direct you to her social media and her website at Chantal Bisson and chantalbisson.com. She's an expert on parenting and relationships, and each week for the month of October, we're going to talk a little bit about both in each newscast. So Chantal, welcome back. Thank you so much again for doing this.
Thanks so much for having me.
And we're going to get right to it, because this time we're going to start by talking about overprogramming your kids. Now, there are many, many parents who do this. So tell me exactly, in your definition, what is overprogramming?
Well, I think overprogramming is when you don't give your child a moment to catch their breath and have some time off to themselves to do things that they want to do that have nothing to do with furthering their talents, their abilities, or their level of education by having them tutored. So I think a lot of parents feel like if their kids aren't busy doing something every day after school, they're kind of failing them. And it's quite the opposite. You need to give your child some downtime. You need to allow them to have problem solving skills, to figure out how to entertain themselves and how to just be calm and quiet and have some board time.
Now, what are the signs that you may be too active in your child's life and overprogramming them?
When your child tells you that. I mean, it sounds really straightforward and simple, but it really is that straightforward and simple. Like a child will often tell the parent if they're not enjoying something that the parent has them in, whether it be music class, dance class, or any number of activities. Our girls all had different interests. So we really had to pay attention and listen to what they enjoyed and what they didn't. They all automatically started to dance. I had been an ex-dancer. Two of the girls didn't really take to it, didn't really enjoy it. So we pulled them out and we found activities that they enjoy. So I think when you're a parent, oftentimes we can put our own agenda on them and what we think they need and what we think will further their lives and give them joy and pleasure. And I think that we're doing them a great disservice by not listening to them and letting them tell us what they would like to be doing with their time after school.
So how do you avoid this? Because I think a lot of parents get into the trap where they think that if their kids aren't busy, that they're either not doing something right or that there's an opportunity for them to get into trouble. So how do you avoid and kind of balance this?
Well, I think it's just like anything, and I say this all the time, and I feel like I'm a little bit of a broken record, but at the end of the day, it's about paying attention to your child, it's about having dialogue with your child, and it's about being an involved parent. I mean, if you are involved in a relationship with your kid, you won't miss the signals, and we did this with our girls as they started to get older and the extracurricular activities started to fall off. We said, okay, well, you can't just loaf around and you can't just go hang out in the mall because these are recipes for disaster. So we insisted at that point that they get a part-time job.
Now, can you, Chantal, actually maybe even as a parent be doing some of these things without even realizing that you're doing it, just thinking that maybe you are trying to be a good parent?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. I think, I'm not saying that parents are out there trying to overwhelm their children and overstimulate them. Not at all. I think that there's a lot of, parent shaming that goes on. You've got some parents whose kids are able to take on a lot of stressful activity and don't need a lot of downtime. A lot of hyperactive children do better when they're programmed and they're scheduled and they have a really, really solid, strong routine. Whereas other kids are a little bit more quiet and they want some alone time and they want some downtime. So again, I go back to the same thing that I seem to say over and over again. It's about paying attention to the need of your child and not paying attention to what other parents are doing with their kid.
All right, well, thank you so much, Chantal, and we'll be back next hour, and this time we'll be chatting about how to keep the romance alive in your relationship. Stay with us. We are back with our parenting and relationship expert, Chantal Bisson, and this hour, Chantal, we're talking about relationships and keeping the romance alive. And if you have the key to this, I think you probably would be considered an expert in the field, because this is things that a lot of couples struggle with, and I'm wondering what you think the keys are to keeping things interesting.
For sure. Well, Yannick and I have been together 30 years. We started dating when we were 18. And I think the key to keeping romance alive in a relationship is acknowledging the growth of the relationship, because we all change within that marriage or partnership. And I think we do each other a huge disservice when we kind of stay in the pattern and the routine of what we think we know used to make them happy or they enjoyed. And we stop looking forward to grow the relationship on our own part. So I think what you have to do when you're in a relationship is, again, I say this all the time, but there's got to be dialogue. You know what I mean? Like, we got to be communicating with each other. I think it's really, really important in a relationship to say to your partner, hey, I'm feeling like I'm missing out here. And I would really appreciate if in the relationship we could do a little bit more of this, or we could do a little bit less of that. So you've got to communicate, and don't be afraid to share with your partner where you feel the relationship has started to slide or slip off, or where you feel like your needs aren't being met anymore, rather than just letting it stew and build up and not having any conversation about it until you like completely blow up.
Now, obviously, there are two people in each relationship. So, Chantel, what do you think the secret is outside of communication to striking a balance with things? I know obviously a lot of couples will have a lot of different interests, and they have common interests in different friends. And so, outside of communication, is there a way to maybe find that balance?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that you actually hit on it in the question of in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
How do we keep it interesting by having different interests? Like, it sounds like it's counterintuitive, but it's actually not. Because when you have different interests and you have your different groups of friends and you do different activities, when you come back together, you have new interesting things to talk about with each other. So it's like it's like an onion, and you're opening up another layer of your partner that maybe you didn't know about. We had that happen quite some time ago. I think 10, 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yannick took to mountain biking. And I didn't know a thing about mountain biking, and I didn't have an interest in it. So what we ended up doing is he bought me a bike, and I would go on occasion and go mountain biking with him. And I love to go to movies. He's not a fan of going to movies,
Mm-hmm.
but he'll come along and go to the movies with me, or I go to movies with girlfriends, and then I'll tell him about what I liked about it, what I didn't. So I think it's really important to have those separate lives, but find a way to ensure that they come back together. And we usually do that over a weekly date night. We used to have to put aside a night once a week where he and I would just go and we would reconnect. And I think it's really, really important, especially when parents are in that really super busy stage of their lives
Mm-hmm.
and their relationship, where they've got little kids and they're running around, and they're both kind of doing their own interests, their own hobbies, and then they feel like they're not really spending any time together. If you set apart one night a week, uninterrupted time alone, then that really helps keep you connected.
All right, Chantel, and you have mentioned Yannick a couple of times, just so our viewers know that your husband is actually Yannick Bisson, who is Murdoch from Murdoch Mysteries. So it's a little fun fact for everybody out there. And thanks, Chantel. We've run out of time for this segment, but we'll have you back again next week. So if you want to check out Chantel on social media, you can check out at Chantel Bisson or her website, chantelbisson.com. We'll be back next week with more parenting and relationship tips.